So, with the announcement that FM have finally secured the licensing of the Premier League, probably shows that SI are taking a few steps in the right direction. Now, FM25 has been out for about 8 months and is probably coming to the end of its life cycle in a few months' time. So I thought I'd make a video discussing what changes or additions I'd like to see in FM25. Let's call it a wish list. I guess it goes without saying, but this is the internet, and I have to say that these things are what I personally would like to see, and whether these things can be done, I'm not sure because I have no knowledge about game design or game development. It's just a dream case scenario, and maybe we'll share some of the same thoughts. So at number 1, and this is a massive gripe for me because I enjoy this game mode, and this is the overall of international management. In FM24, for international management, I have issues with things like there is no nation vision, culture, or a 5-year or 3-year plan within a national team. This doesn't allow your national team job to have a real identity, and more often than not, managers get a tournament cycle before being sacked. So to have options where you and the national FA has some form of autonomy over certain aspects would be interesting, like picking players based in the nation to improve domestic league quality, or targeting players with second nationalities to build a better team, or overseeing a playing style down through the age gaps. A perfect example of this is that I'm doing a Slovakia save, and I want to manage the under 21 squad or the under 19 squad because I'm looking for a specific type of player who can maybe play a role in the first team, and managing and overseeing these type of games will help me find new and younger players who can hopefully progress into the first team. And at number 2 is something that I feel is very popular amongst the community, which is the improvement of the AI for directors of football or the technical director, as these staff roles tend to be redundant or bugged out. I found for the director role, they often don't give very valuable feedback, especially when you ask them to recommend signings. They often come back with players which are completely unrealistic or just plain useless. And when it comes to the technical director, my main issue is that I found when you delegate contract renewals to them, because sometimes I just can't be asked multiple player contracts, so I tend to delegate this to the technical director, and more often than not they always come back unsuccessful, where they either can't agree on a wage or a squad role, further impacting the morale of the certain player or the morale of the entire squad. And now bringing us to number 3 is something I've always wanted to see in FM, and this is a stadium or grounds editor. For example, maybe you can have specific modes where you can build your own stadium and team from the ground up and introduce better facilities or more capacity in the stadium with visual improvements. And I know you can already ask the board to extend the stadium, but you never actually see any physical change. And I don't want to compare FM to any other games because it's quite a unique game. But for example, in the NBA 2K games, you have the ability to customize your arena from advertisement boards to the seats or actual court. And when it comes to stadium building, maybe introduce mechanics like the top 11 games mixed with something like The Sims. And now at number 4, this ties in a little with the stadium customizations, and this is kit or sponsorship customizations. I know there could be potentially a licensing issue, and that's probably why SI don't incorporate sponsors into the game. But maybe if they could figure something out with, let's say, like Nike, to include Nike customizable kits or boots. Or another idea could take the route of EA and Codemasters, where in the F1 game you have the ability to customize and add fake sponsors onto your car. And maybe something like this can even add a mechanic where, say, you are managing a lower league team and a sponsor comes in bringing in some extra cash for you to spend on your team. Now moving on to number 5 is something I recently experienced myself, and this is to maybe introduce a better tutorial mode or a simpler introduction skin for newer players. I say this because I recently introduced my friend to FM and he couldn't get the grip of it due to just feeling overwhelmed. And personally I get that. If you're a new player and you immediately just get bombarded with a lot of text and basic tutorials, like the setting up your first tactic or set pieces, and then it's just more emails, where you end up spending your first like 45 minutes just clicking the next message tab. And although it is confirmed that FM25 will have an entirely new match engine, and whether this will be a drastic improvement to the in-game graphics or interface, I'm not sure, but maybe included with the new match engine, they can change the UI a bit and maybe have multiple UI for new or veteran players where you won't get that TLDR situations. And coming in at number 6 is something, let's call it ultimate dream case scenario. And this is if SI could add the implementation of an AI software, kind of like ChatGPT, rather than the RNG based system they use in the board requests and interactions with players and other clubs, you could have a program that could react to unique aspects of your saves to generate responses that would completely change your game. And personally, I don't know how this would work because again, my knowledge of game development is limited, but if it's possible, it would make every single save completely unique. You would even be able to type your own responses in these interactions rather than click a pre-written response that led to a conversation that feels somewhat predetermined. This would make this aspect of the game more skill-based as well. And now moving on to our last 4 improvements or features, they are just going to be common sense or quality of life improvements. And now starting with 7, I'd like more dynamic crowd sounds and fan chants where possible. This would be nice to hear and it would just add that extra ambient feel to your game. And for 8, it's just another annoyance, and this is to fix the occasions where players don't understand why you want them to loan them out due to squad registration restrictions. I mean, I don't know if it's just a bug, but I've seen this so many times in game. And at 9 is something just silly. The amount of times I've seen top coaches that get sacked is just ridiculous. I feel like clubs change their managers way too often. Like recently, I've seen Pep get sacked for just finishing 3rd in one of my saves. And lastly, at number 10, and this is an important one, and one that's close to the heart, as I'm an FM player on PC who's bought the game on Steam. So I beg you SI, to make the in-game editor or the pre-game editor free or part of the base game. Looking at the Steam charts, FM25 in my country is pretty well priced, but in some countries it's a bit more spenny, and making people on PC pay extra for the in-game editor feels a bit scammy in my opinion. So that's all from me for now, managers, and these are my wishlist changes and additions I'd like to see in FM25. And if you have any inputs or something you'd like to see, please leave it in the comments below. I'm really intrigued to see what other people want in FM25, and I'll see you in the next one.